I got kicked out at 19 because my stepbrother threw a party and I got blamed for using drugs I never even touched and no one believed me, not even my own mother. My real dad dipped when I was 4, went for bread, and disappeared. And yeah, I cried about it until one day mom snapped and screamed that he was never coming back, and after that, I never asked again. When I was 7, she met some ex-military dude, and within months he moved in with his son who was about a year older than me, and for the next 10 years, our house was rules, drills, and discipline. I actually got stronger, built muscle, learned to fight, even respected the guy in a weird way. But we were never close. It was more like I was part of his program than his family. His son, my stepbrother, was the golden boy, not cruel but smug, got away with everything, had his little crew at school that teased me sometimes but never crossed a real line. He even stepped in once or twice when it got too much, so I thought maybe he was alright. I worked part-time after graduation, saving up, figuring things out. Nothing wild, and then summer hits and he comes back from college, all confidence and grins. And one Saturday when mom and stepdad are visiting grandma, he throws a party, invites people I've never seen before. The house turns into a mess of bodies and bass. I stay out of it mostly, hang out with this one girl who's way too pretty to be talking to me. She's laughing, we're close. She kisses me and I feel something hit my mouth, like powder, weird taste. I pull back but she just laughs and kisses me again. And suddenly I'm floating, everything's warm, the lights bloom, time folds in half. I barely remember anything after that, just blurs and music and her voice like a song I can't quite catch. Then suddenly, cold, sharp, screaming, my stepdad's voice ripping through the air, and I'm sitting on the couch, shirt open, eyes glassy. He's yelling that I'm a junkie, that I brought drugs into his house, and I'm too slow, too stunned to say anything. Then comes the punch, hard to the stomach. I go down and mom's yelling at him to stop, but she's not looking at me, not helping, and behind him, my stepbrother's just standing there, face partly covered like he's wiping off a smirk or hiding fear. I ask him later why he didn't say anything, why he let me take the fall, and he just shrugs and walks off, like I'm not even worth answering. Stepdad gives me 2 days to get out or he'll drag me to rehab himself. I try to explain, swear I didn't take anything, but no one listens. Mom cries but says nothing, and then they send out a family-wide text saying, I've broken down and need help. Cousins start DMing me with pity, aunts with fake concern, and some don't even reply. I'm suddenly the black sheep of a story that never even belonged to me, and the worst part? I still don't even know what the hell happened that night, but everyone already decided who I was. I went back to the house because mom texted that some of my mail was stacking up. She said it'd be on the counter, no one would be home, just grab and go. And I believed her. They were supposed to be out all weekend visiting my aunt, so I didn't even knock, just let myself in like I used to, walked through the garage, into the kitchen, and froze, because I wasn't alone. My stepbrother was there, sitting at the table with his best friend Marcus, both of them mid-laugh, chips and soda on the table, like nothing mattered. And before I could step back out or make a sound, I heard Marcus say, dude, that was fucking wild though. You're lucky your dad didn't find out it was you. And my stepbrother just grinned, cool as ever, and said, please, he thinks the freak did it. And I knew immediately who he meant, and my blood just stopped moving. Marcus laughed again and said, how'd you even pull that off? And my brother leaned back like he was proud of himself and said, easy, girl drops a little something on him, lets him trip balls while I make sure the house looks like a crime scene. Then boom, dad walks in, sees him all spaced out with his tongue hanging out. What's he gonna think? And Marcus whistled low and said, damn, that's cold. And my brother just shrugged, still smiling, and said, I had to, man, after that campus bullshit. I was one strike away from being cut off. Dad said if he ever hears my name near drugs again, I'm done, so I made sure someone else took the hit. And Marcus asked, was that your stash? And he said, nah, it was for the weekend. My guys needed a drop before break. I just held it for a night. Wasn't even supposed to be here. Then cops show up, random sweep, ruined everything. And then I realized he meant that he'd been caught, for real, at school, and they covered it up somehow. And now he needed to make sure nothing pointed back at him. And I was perfect, quiet, weird, not their real son, the one who never quite fit. And Marcus said, your parents bought it that fast? And he said, are you kidding? Mom cried a little, but they were probably relieved it wasn't me. They practically pushed him out the door, and they both laughed, like it was funny, like I was just a plot device in some dumb college prank. And I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, just stood there behind the door, hearing them talk about me like I was a problem they solved, not even guilty, just smug, like they outplayed me and everyone else, and suddenly the whole thing made sense. The way she kissed me, the powder, how fast it hit, how my brother was calm when they came home, the way he watched me take the blame without blinking, like he knew this was coming and just waited for it to fall into place. And now I know it wasn't some misunderstanding, it was a setup, a clean handoff of blame from the golden boy to the disposable one, and they didn't even hide it. They didn't need to, because no one was going to question it. Not after how I looked that night. Not after how quiet I'd always been. I walked out without making a sound, took the mail I came for and left, and they never knew I heard. But I did, and it changed everything. Because now I'm not confused anymore. I'm not asking why they didn't believe me, I know why. They never had to. After I heard what they said, I cut everything, blocked their numbers, deleted every cousin, every uncle, every half-assed friend who didn't bother to ask if I was okay, and just disappeared. No forwarding address, no explanations, just gone. I had no ID, no cash, no backup. Eli's couch wasn't gonna last forever and I knew it. So I took the first job I could get, demo crew at a construction site, under the table. $50 a day, enough to eat and keep my head down. I kept my phone off most of the time, slept in corners of half-finished houses, showered with freezing water out of broken plumbing. Then after a few weeks I scraped enough to buy this busted old Toyota from a guy who clearly didn't care if the papers were legit. She rattled like hell but she moved, and that was enough. I signed up for night shifts doing deliveries, driving pizzas around the city while everyone else was out drinking and laughing and posting bullshit on their stories. I didn't talk much, didn't smile, just dropped the food and left, paid in tips and silence. Found a basement for rent through some Craigslist ad that looked sketchy as hell but turned out okay. Cold cement floor, one outlet, no kitchen, just a hot plate and a leaky sink. I bought an air mattress from Walmart and called it a bed. Wore the same hoodie 5 days a week, and didn't complain because no one was listening anyway. And for months I didn't think. I just moved, worked, slept, repeat, like a ghost going through the motions. Until one day I took a flyer from a community board at the laundromat, free mental health clinic, walk-ins welcome, and I don't know why I went. Maybe because the flyer was yellow and everything else was gray, or maybe because I hadn't heard my own voice out loud in days, and I sat there across from this grad student with too much caffeine and no clue what I'd been through. And when he asked why I came in, I opened my mouth and said, because they betrayed me, and then I couldn't stop. The words poured out, slow and flat, not dramatic, just facts, and he didn't say much. But he listened, and it was the first time in months that I felt like I was in the room, not outside of it. After that I started crawling out of the hole, one piece at a time, filed for my birth certificate, then a replacement ID, signed up for GED classes at the community center, studied between shifts. I barely slept but it gave me something to build toward. And then one night my car just stopped in the middle of a run, engine light flashing, then dead. I had to push it into a gas station and leave it there. And the next morning I walked to the nearest auto shop, tired and pissed off, asked what it'd take to fix it. Guy looks it over and says it's bad. Belts, battery, some leak I didn't understand. Said it'd cost more than the car was worth. And I almost lost it. Just stood there shaking my head. Told him I didn't have that kind of money. And he looked at me and asked, you know how to hold a wrench? I said yeah, and he nodded like that settled something in his head. Said they were short on hands for fall season work, oil changes, tire swaps, simple stuff, weekends mostly. Asked if I could start Saturday, and in return, he'd help me get the car running again, not for free, but for fair. And I said yes, because what else was I gonna say? And just like that, I had another job, a reason to keep showing up. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe things wouldn't stay broken forever. I picked it up fast, faster than I thought I would, faster than anyone expected. Oil changes, tire rotations, basic diagnostics, nothing fancy, just repetition and attention. And when the rushes slowed down and I found myself with time before the next car pulled in, I didn't sit around. I walked over to whoever looked busy and asked, need a hand? Or, what are you doing? And they showed me things, small things at first, but I remembered every damn step, and they saw I wasn't just there to coast. And after a couple weeks it became routine. We'd close out the shift, the others would clock out and head home. But I'd stick around with the boss, just us in the quiet of the garage, tools clicking, old rock playing low from a dusty speaker, pulling apart the mess that was my Toyota. And I found out fast the guy was a freak for engines. Half the back lot was rusted shells and projects he never finished but refused to get rid of, stuff from the 80s, weird imports, even a dirt track car that hadn't run in 10 years. He lived for it, you could tell. And I think seeing someone actually give a shit about learning made him open up. because the more I showed up, the more he showed me, until one night we had the engine halfway apart and he looked at it, sighed, and said, "Yeah, this ain't gonna be quick," then reached into his pocket, pulled out a key, and tossed it to me, said it was for an old Honda parked in the back. Nothing fancy but it ran, told me to use it until we got mine sorted, and I didn't even know what to say. I just stood there holding it like it might disappear, thanked him a dozen times, and walked around the whole next day like I just won the goddamn lottery. And yeah, the repair took a month, piece by piece, bolts cleaned, parts ordered, budgeted tight, but we got her running, and the plan was I'd go back to just weekends after that, and the extra hours. But he waited until we were locking up one night and said, "You ever think about staying? Like actually staying, apprentice level, learn from the guys, maybe next year I send you to certification." And I swear my jaw hit the floor. I actually laughed, like he was messing with me, like this was some cruel joke. But he wasn't joking. I even pinched my arm like a dumbass just to be sure I wasn't dreaming, and when I realized it was real, that he meant it, that someone finally saw something in me worth investing in, I said yes so fast it barely sounded like a word, and the next day I told the demo crew I was done, walked off the site for the last time, and started showing up at the shop full-time, head down, ears open, hands learning. And yeah, I still did delivery runs 2 nights a week, because rent was rent and ramen wasn't free, but it didn't matter anymore. For the first time since everything went to hell, I had something that was mine, something I chose, something I was good at, and no one could take it from me. By winter I could run diagnostics on most engines without help, not everything, but the common models, the ones that showed up most often, and boss noticed, gave me a bump in pay without me asking, said I was pulling more than apprentice weight and it was time. And for the first time I started having real money in my pocket. Not a lot, but enough to breathe, enough to fix what broke instead of duct taping it. And one day close to the holidays I was talking with Paul, one of the older techs. Guy had to be in his 50s, soft voice, heavy hands, kind eyes, always treated me like a nephew more than a coworker, asked me what I was doing for Christmas and I gave some half-assed, not sure yet, kind of answer, and he just looked at me like that wasn't an option and said, "Nah, man. You're coming to our place. Nobody does Christmas alone." And I wanted to say no. Not because I didn't want to go but because I didn't know how to be around people like that anymore. But I said yes, and I went. And it was loud and warm and full of smells I hadn't felt in years. And his wife hugged me like we'd known each other forever. And someone shoved a plate in my hands and told me to sit wherever. And for once I didn't feel like an outsider, just a quiet guy at a table where no one cared about your past. And then one of Paul's cousins, I think, mid-30s, glasses, wore a dad joke loading shirt, starts talking to me about cars and work and life, just small talk, but he asks where I live, and I tell him, basement, mattress, no kitchen, and he kind of blinks and goes, "Dude, I have a basement unit, like an actual one, finished, insulated, private entrance, I rent it out sometimes, way better than what you're describing, you wanna see it after the holidays." And I was stunned but I said yeah, checked it out a week later, and the place was solid. Carpeted, warm, furnished, still cheap but not falling apart. And I moved in by the end of January, bought myself a real bed, a second-hand laptop, started watching teardown videos on YouTube, tutorials, wiring guides, learned how to rebuild alternators, replace sensors, wire in subs, install LEDs. And by summer I wasn't just holding tools, I was handling jobs start to finish, and customers started asking for me by name, especially the younger ones with beat-up Civics or old trucks they were trying to keep alive. I wasn't the apprentice anymore. I was the guy, and boss pushed me towards certification, paid for half of it, said I earned it, and I passed, moved up to full engine tech, then started learning transmissions, then wiring. Hell, I even started helping with audio systems, full installs. And by the time the next winter rolled around, I had clients booked out weeks ahead, people texting to get in before holidays, asking me if I had time for a full sound system or halo lights or winterproofing. And I said yes to almost everything because I remembered what it felt like to have nothing, to sleep on plastic, to push a dead car into a gas station hoping no one watched. And now I had something, not big, not flashy, but mine. And in my neighborhood, among the guys with loud engines and custom builds, they started saying my name when something needed fixing, and when I walked into the corner store or past the lot where they parked at night, people nodded at me like I mattered, like I belonged. It was a Thursday in March, 2 days before my stepbrother's birthday. The shop was quiet, just regulars coming through for oil and tire stuff. I was cleaning up the front when a silver Acura TL pulled into the lot, clean, loud but not obnoxious, 2 guys inside, one about my age, one older. and I didn't think anything of it until they got out and started walking toward the office. My boss had just stepped out with coffee in hand and the older one said, "Hey, we heard from a few people that this is the place to come if you want your system to sound like a concert." And boss smiled like he always does and said, "Only if you're planning to install, not just talk about it." And they both laughed, tried to sound cool, like they knew the drill. And then boss called me over, just a casual, "Hey, got a minute?" And I walked up, no big deal, and saw their faces and froze, like full stop. It was my cousin and my stepfather. And the air in my lungs turned to stone, like I'd stepped into a time machine I didn't ask for, and it hit me hard because I didn't expect it. Not here, not now, and definitely not like this. And for a second no one said anything, just that weird silence where everyone realizes something at the same time. My cousin's face shifted first, like he recognized me before he could stop himself. Then my stepfather's eyes flicked to me, confused at first, then wide. And he said my name once, then again, and I swear I blinked and was back in the living room with his fist in my stomach, the screaming, the shame. But then I was back in the present, standing in a garage, not a kid anymore. And he was saying how they'd been trying to reach me, that mom was worried, that grandma kept asking about me, that they didn't know where I'd gone. And I just stood there, not saying a word, watching his mouth move like he was rehearsing lines from a script he barely remembered. 5 straight minutes of circling the same thought. Just call, just come by, she misses you. We didn't know, we made mistakes, and part of me wanted to scream, the other part wanted to leave. But I didn't do either, I stayed right there, still. Then finally he said maybe it was better if they left, and started backing off, like they expected me to shut the door on them. And that's when I spoke, flat, automatic. I asked what they wanted for the sound system, make, model, budget, what they were expecting. Listed a few standard setups, gave them an estimate, and they looked shocked, like they weren't sure if I was serious. And I told them to leave a deposit and come back Tuesday for install. And they nodded, awkward, like kids who just got told off by a teacher but weren't sure why. And then they left, as fast as they came, and I stood there for a long time after, not moving, just staring at the bay door like it might explain what just happened. That night I didn't sleep, couldn't stop rewinding it. Their faces, his voice. That moment my cousin realized who I was, and all I kept thinking was I don't know how to feel. I don't know if I want revenge, or forgiveness, or just space. But I knew one thing, they came into my place, into my world, and for once, I didn't shrink. By then I had a girlfriend, older than me by a few years, calm, sharp, never pushed where I didn't want to go, but always asked the right questions. And that Saturday she came over, brought food, said we should relax, but we ended up spending most of the night talking about what happened, the drop-in, the faces, what it meant. And somewhere between her third cup of tea and my second long silence, she said, "You don't have to hate them forever, but you can't leave it open like this either." And she was right, something about showing up felt necessary, not for them, but for me, just to put it all on the table, on my terms. And so I dug up the number my stepfather left when he dropped the deposit, sent a short message Sunday morning. "Can stop by today after lunch, 20 minutes. And the reply came back fast, "Of course, we'd love to see you," like they'd been waiting for it, like they already had the speech written. I cleaned the BMW. Yeah, I bought one off auction, rebuilt it. Myself, nothing crazy under the hood but clean, solid, looked like something you don't lend to a kid. Put on the best clothes I had, the watch my girlfriend gave me for my birthday that I'd never worn because I didn't want to break it at work, and we pulled up to the old house just past 2. And of course they were all standing there already, like they'd been staring through the window since breakfast, lined up like actors waiting for the scene to start. And walking through that front door was like stepping into a fake memory. Everything too clean, too full, the table overloaded with untouched food, and silence thick enough to choke on. Mom hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe, maybe cried, hard to tell, then shoved me into a chair like it was 10 years ago, like nothing happened. And we all sat there pretending we were a family again, except nobody knew what to say. So she saved it, my girl, started asking about the food, how it was made, if it was something I liked as a kid. And just like that the ice cracked, small talk flowed, Mom relaxed, people started chewing, and then Mom asked me what happened, where I'd gone, what I'd done, and I gave the version that fit in 5 minutes. Work, GED, the shop, steady grind, didn't go deep, just gave enough, and they nodded, surprised, impressed, even smiled, but my brother didn't say a word, just stared at me like I was a ghost with his name on it. And then my stepfather said it, too casual, too clean, "I'm proud of you. Glad you didn't fall into drugs or spiral. Glad you chose the right path." And I felt something in me snap, not loud, just sharp, like a tendon under too much pressure, and I didn't say anything, just looked down at my plate, until my girl, quiet until now, turned to him and asked, soft but cutting, wait, you still don't know the truth, and the room went dead, like oxygen disappeared, and he blinked at her, confused, and said, what do you mean? And she looked right at him and said it again, slower this time, you still think he was the one on drugs, and now all eyes were on her, and on me, and on him, the man who hit me, kicked me out, watched me disappear and never once asked if maybe it wasn't what he thought, and for the first time since I walked in, he had no words. I didn't out him. I looked that man in the eye, the one who threw me out, who called me a junkie, who made sure the door was locked behind me, and told him what he needed to hear, not the full truth, just enough, that someone his son brought had something, that they poured me water because I didn't drink, that the next thing I remembered was the floor near the couch and nothing else, and I watched the blood drain from his face like shame finally found a home in him, and Mom, she just broke, didn't say a word, just pulled me into her arms and started crying, saying she was sorry, over and over like it would change what already happened, but I wasn't listening to her. I was busy holding back the part of me that wanted to turn and point at the bastard sitting across the table, the one who let me rot so he could stay golden, the one who let me fall so he could float. But I didn't, I stayed still, and when I looked up, I saw my girl watching him, quiet but sharp, and I swear she didn't blink as he started to turn red, not from guilt, from exposure, from knowing someone finally saw through him, and after everyone settled into their own kind of discomfort, I stood up, said it was time to go, thanked Mom, shook my stepfather's hand, ignored the brother completely, walked out into the cold, clear air, and just as I unlocked the car, I heard footsteps, him, of course, catching up, stammering, trying to say thank you for not saying it, for covering for him, for not crushing him in front of everyone, and I turned, looked him dead in the face and said, you don't deserve what I just did for you, and got in the car, didn't wait for a response, started the engine and pulled away, and yeah, I was burning. I could feel it in my throat, behind my eyes, in the way my fingers tightened on the steering wheel without meaning to. It wasn't anger like yelling or throwing things, it was older than that, heavier. It was the hunger I felt that winter when I skipped dinner 3 nights in a row to make rent. It was the panic of staring at a busted engine and knowing I didn't have the money to fix it. It was every night I spent staring at a concrete ceiling wondering if I was ever going to matter again. I could have said his name. I could have dropped the truth like a bomb right in the middle of their neat little table, blown his image to pieces, made them choke on every word they'd ever said about me, and for a second, for a real second, I wanted to. I wanted him to feel what I felt when they turned on me, when I packed a bag without knowing where I was going, when I realized no one was coming to help. I wanted justice. Why I let him walk, why I let them keep their comfort, why I swallowed it again. But then I felt her hand on my shoulder, gentle, steady, and she said, you did the grown thing, I'm proud of you, and suddenly I wasn't angry anymore, not really. The heat drained out of me like someone opened a valve, and what was left wasn't pain, it was space, clean and cold and wide, like a weight dropped off the edge and finally stopped dragging behind me. And don't get me wrong, I love cats, but this one, that had been sitting on my chest for years finally got up and walked away, and that was it. That was the best feeling I've ever had, better than any win, any pay raise, any car I've fixed. That moment when the stone in your chest crumbles, and you remember what it feels like to breathe again. Subscribe, hit the like button, and explore more fascinating stories.